Agar media is made from seaweed extract and potato dextrose and can be poured into a petri dish where it will solidify like jello. Agar media on petri dishes is ideal for isolating strains because mycelium is so much easier to see and extract from a petri dish than it is from a jar. Agar media comes in a dehydrated powder form and can be bought from science supply stores, spore suppliers, or can be made at home from recipes widely available on the internet. A small bottle will cost $10 or $20 and will go a long way. The most common type is potato dextrose agar, or PDA. Preparing agar media is similar to making jello. Unless it is otherwise directed on the label, combine about 10 grams of PDA powder with about 250 milliliters of distilled water and mix it together well in a canning jar. PDA is not harmful, so using gloves is not necessary. Place the cap on the canning jar with the rubber ring facing upward, but do not seal it tight. Instead, leave the cap somewhat loose and cover the top with tin foil. Place the jar into the pressure cooker and, following the directions of the pressure cooker, cook it at 15 psi for 1 full hour. After the cooker has cooled enough that it can be safely opened, remove the jar using oven mitts. If the agar media is to be poured into dishes, then this must be done before it cools down enough to solidify. However, be careful never to open the pressure cooker while it still has internal pressure. Agar can be poured into flat petri dishes, test tube slants, small baby food jars, or it could be left to solidify in the jar it was cooked in. But for the purposes of growing mycelium in order to find and isolate a particular genotype, flat petri dishes are best because the mycelium grows on a flat, two-dimensional plane, and so it can be easily seen and extracted. Pour the media into petri dishes in a sterile environment. Stack dishes 3 or 4 high and use a continuous, repetitive motion, leaving their lids off for as little time as possible. This will minimize the potential for contaminants. Take care not to overfill the dishes. Carefully place the filled dishes into a plastic baggie or clean Tupperware container for extra protection and place them somewhere cool to solidify. It may be a good idea to wait 3 or 4 days before inoculating them to make sure no contamination occurred during the pouring procedure. Any growth or discoloration that occurs on the media is a contamination. To inoculate the agar media, take proper precautions. Do it in a sterile area and sterilize metal tools with a flame. Use a small scraping from a spore print or a drop from a spore syringe and deposit it onto the agar media. Replace the lid on the agar media quickly. Spores from a print or syringe will result in multiple genome types intermingled. For a single, dikaryotic strain to be the result, you can inoculate the agar media with a freshly dissected piece of live fruit body tissue or with a segment of mycelium from another agar culture. Once it has been inoculated, incubate the new agar culture in darkness at 86 degrees Fahrenheit for fast growth, just as you would a rice flour and vermiculite cake substrate. Or, to halt growth so that the culture can be stored for long periods, put it in the fridge shortly after the mycelium begins to grow. This way, preferred strains can be preserved for months and years. To begin a batch culture from a single genotype, find a healthy sector of mycelium that exhibits the preferred qualities. Avoid fuzzy, cottony type mycelium. Look for ropey, rhizomorphic strands. Presumably, the sector will contain mycelium from one single dikaryotic strain only. To extract it, use a scalpel or a knife that has been heat sterilized. Flame the blade until it glows, and then, after it has cooled for several seconds, cut out a wedge from the good area. Stay away from the side of the dish and make 3 clean cuts. Pick the wedge up by spearheading it in the middle. Hypothetically, you could take two wedges from the same rhizomorphic growth area, one to inoculate a rye seed jar, and the other to inoculate a slant or another petri dish. The rye jar is used to start a mass stock culture, and the slant or petri dish is placed in the fridge for long-time storage and future use. While some growers will always use the petri dish step first, so that the initial inoculation will be from a single preferred genotype, any grow technique can be carried out with a multispore source. This means that the petri dish step can be skipped, and it is okay to use a syringe or spore print to directly inoculate a substrate. The difference will be, if you have a good, isolated strain, all of your mycelium and fruits should look and grow similar, and likely they will have strong fruiting abilities. Whereas with a multispore source, the substrates and fruits may grow very dissimilarly, and fruits may not be as plentiful. Growers have success with both methods, though experts seem to prefer to take time and select for more promising genotypes.